This is the Capitol Rundown.
It may look on the surface that the governor and the Republicans in the legislature have a disagreement on tax cuts. That is illusionary. What you see going on right now is both sides are staking out their negotiating positions.
Stop the shouting. Get beyond the fear. Learn to embrace one another again. We need to reject those that want to do nothing beyond tearing down and instead work on building back up.
We've opened the border up again. We have steel laying on the ground that we paid for. We have contractors we paid to do the services that we're paying to do nothing right now. That has to be developed again. We need to secure the border.
It's all straight ahead. The Capitol Rundown starts now.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Thompson. Yet another big week here in Michigan politics. Michigan Republicans are pushing a huge tax cut. But is the governor okay with it? Plus, are we headed into another COVID wave? The Rundown's Jorma Duran and our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic are here this morning to break it all down for us.
It's time to get updated politically here in the state of Michigan, and nobody better than this man right here, Tim Skubic. Tim, so good to see you once again. Let's get right into it. I'm hearing a bunch of tax cut plans being pitched or already being pitched. What's going on?
Yeah, take one from column A, one from column B, and let's see what we come up with. Look, it may look on the surface that the governor and the Republicans in the legislature have a disagreement on tax cuts. That is illusionary. What you see going on right now is both sides are staking out their negotiating positions to come up with a finalized package, which is not soup yet. What you saw happen this week is that the Republicans popped on the governor their plan about a $2.5 to $2.7 billion tax cut, including many of the proposals that the governor wanted in the Republican plan that she vetoed. And so the Republicans said, all right, so you wanted some more additional aid for needy families, we'll give that to you. You wanted some aid in other areas and tax credits for children, we'll give you that. But the governor didn't like what the Republicans did. Instead, she popped on them out of nowhere an automatic $500 check that would go to taxpayers, a one-time payment, and that would be her tax rebate. But look, you're going to have a coming together eventually of these two sides to stop trying to one-up one another for political gain and to actually go in the room and negotiate. And so what you're seeing right now is basically they're in one corner, the Republicans, the governor's in the other. They're going to meet at the center of the ring, and somebody will referee all of this. And at the end of the day, you're going to get some money back. I can't tell you how much it'll be. I can't tell you when it will be, but I can tell you that in this election year, this is good as gold. They got billions of dollars in surplus money, and you're going to get part of it.
Let me ask you this real quick then. When would be the deadline for these parties to come to some sort of agreement?
Well, it's probably before the summer recess, if they can. There is no deadline imposed on these negotiations. They could theoretically go in the room tomorrow and take about 10 minutes to say, look, I'll give you what you want, you give me what I want, and we're done. It'll probably be a little uglier than that, but the essence of it will be they'll get there eventually.
Well, I can't believe I'm talking to you about this because it seems like every time I talk to you, I bring this up, and I haven't seen you in like 5 months. But close to 40 counties in just 1 month's time has gone from low risk to either medium or high risk when it comes to COVID. This thing's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. No, it's not, and it's kind of disappointing. But I think the mental attitude in Michigan has changed significantly, as witnessed by the governor the other day, whose storyline now is basically this. You're pretty much on your own. You want to wear a mask? Wear a mask. You don't want to wear a mask? Don't wear a mask. She is not going to issue any mandates. The schools, of course, are concerned here, and some continue to have their mask policies. But the COVID numbers have been inching up. We're averaging about 3,500 cases a day. It was much, much lower than that the last time we talked. But the number that we saw this week is about 8% less than it was last week. So there's a little glimmer of hope there. But hospitalizations are also up. But none of these numbers, case-wise, hospitalizations or deaths, are anywhere near the record levels that we had during the height of the pandemic. So we're sort of in a maybe pre-surge stage where things will get worse before they get better. But we do know this for sure. COVID is here to stay.
Yeah, you could say that again. Tim, it's always great to see you. Great for the, thanks for the updates.
Jarmo, always good to work with you, and have a nice, safe weekend, okay, buddy?
Thank you both. Well, coming up next here on The Rundown, Michigan Congressman Tim Walberg is running for re-election, but this year his district has changed. We'll hear from him when the Capitol Rundown comes right back. The race for Congress is on. This week, we caught up with Michigan Congressman Tim Walberg, who's running to keep his seat, but in a new district, the 5th District. Take a listen as he talks about the top priorities he sees for his next term.
Well, I think the top priorities have to run along the line of what we're being challenged with now. The fact that we have a huge inflation rate that we often call Bidenflation is a key. And to do that, we have to stop spending that we've been doing for too long at the federal level. Putting out the trillions of dollars of COVID relief was one thing, but to continue that into the marketplace with tax dollars does only one thing, and it's always done it. It increases inflation. And so that has to be something we work at. The whole idea of the energy crisis that we're looking at for the president just this last week to again shut down further exploration or development or drilling in the Gulf or Alaska sent the wrong message, just like he sent the message back on his inauguration day that he was shutting down the Keystone Pipeline. That said to all the investors that truly bring the dollars in the system to continue the development, the exploration, the processing of fuels that we need, and ultimately the decreased price at the pump, that all ended. That has to change. If we did exactly what we did during the last administration, where just before COVID, it was averaging $1.79 a gallon, that would be a huge impact when right now we're being scared with the fact that very likely before summer's out, we'll be at over $6 a gallon. That hurts everybody, and most importantly, those least able to pay. We certainly need to talk about reducing taxes. When we did that with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that the Trump administration signed and I helped pass and get signed into law, we saw great revenue development and increases coming in the federal government. That's because people were using their own resources. They were spending, they were saving, they're investing. We need to do that. I'm committed to doing that. Then you look at a couple other areas that kind of tie in, well, maybe even 3 areas that I've been involved in pushing over the course of the past number of years, and we had some success in it, getting bills passed, signed into law, and having impact. But now we're going back the opposite direction. We've opened the border up again. We have steel laying on the ground that we paid for. We have contractors we paid to do the services that we're paying to do nothing right now. That has to be developed again. We need to secure the border. When we did that, we also encouraged legal immigration, and we saw safety and security at the border. We stopped much of the illegal and illicit drugs coming in from the cartels. That's all changed. So we have to go back at securing the border, promoting immigration legally. We have to reduce the flow of illegal substances, fentanyl, opioids.
Coming up next this morning, we catch up with the candidate running against Walberg, hoping to flip the district to the other side of the aisle. Capitol Rundown. We'll be right back. We continue our look at the race for Michigan's newly drawn 5th congressional district this morning. The Rundown also caught up with Democrat Bart Goldberg, who's running against incumbent Republican Tim Walberg. Here he is explaining why he thinks he's the best one for the job.
There are so many issues where Washington, D.C. has really failed to address the needs of South Michigan. So, of course, I'm very interested in all of those, but there's one thing that's more important than any of that. It's this: most people simply don't realize how close we've come to losing our democracy. In the history of the world, there's never been a democracy that survived as long as ours has, and its continued survival is simply not a given. It's a pretty scary thought to think about what might have happened had Mike Pence not stepped up on January 6th. Or to give another example even closer to home, here in Antrim County in Michigan, where there was an honest election reporting mistake made by a county clerk. Well, fortunately, she was a Republican. Think of what would have happened if she would have been a Democrat. I think we would have had civil unrest. It's very sobering. And the thing is, this can still happen. So I'm dedicated to bringing people together to make sure that it never does. Now, for our country to survive and to prosper, we've got to stop the shouting, get beyond the fear, learn to embrace one another again. We need to reject those that want to do nothing beyond tearing down and instead work on building back up. In particular, I think we've really got to encourage an appreciation of a couple of values that have run scared in the last few years, those being an appreciation of facts and knowledge. Our country loses so much from this partisan war. So, I mean, when you think about it, most of the legislation in Congress are things that would benefit all people. Democrats and Republicans alike want so many things in common. You know, to give you a taste of them, and of course I care profoundly about all these issues. There's infrastructure. Even with the recent Infrastructure Act, we still need more broadband connection in rural Michigan. I'm very concerned about environmental issues, particularly water. We've been spoiled forever in Michigan because we have this abundant source of clean water being the Great Lakes, but we've got to protect it. The stakes are just huge. I'm a big proponent of trade schools and vocational education, technical schools. We've got to get beyond this idea that everyone needs to attend a four-year college. Businesses are crying out for people adept at technical skills, and even farms are. So by doing so, we'll be helping to create great middle-class jobs, and we would be working to reduce our dependence on foreign sources and therefore the supply chain issues. Of course, I'm very interested in protecting the elderly, including protecting Social Security and Medicare.
Well, there's still a lot to cover here this morning. Up next, we take a look at a proposal in D.C. that some lawmakers say could save lives across the country. We'll tell you what it is and what's inspired it when the Capitol Rundown comes right back. Following years of mass shootings, including the one last week in Buffalo, New York, many lawmakers now believe there's a need for an active shooter alert system nationwide. Our Washington correspondent Basil John reports on how this Amber Alert-like system could help communities and people stay safe.
We can't become numb to these events.
Rhode Island Democratic Congressman David Cicilline believes more needs to be done to keep communities safe during an active shooting.
We have to give law enforcement every tool they need to neutralize these threats and really mitigate the harms that come from them.
Cicilline, along with Michigan Republican Congressman Fred Upton, want to create an active shooter alert system that works like an Amber Alert.
It's really easy to send the signal within a certain amount of space to say, watch out, take cover.
Both lawmakers see this as a necessary step to deal with the mass shootings plaguing the country.
Get innocent people out of the area so that they can protect the rest of us.
The bill they're sponsoring would also appoint an active shooter alert coordinator from the Department of Justice to develop best practices for the system.
It's a bill that needs to be passed and sent to the President of the United States.
California Democratic Congressman Mike Thompson and South Carolina Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace are lending their support.
There is no reason not to do this legislation right now. There is no greater, more urgent need than right now.
Cicilline expects the bill to receive heavy bipartisan backing and pass in June. Reporting in Washington, I'm Basil John.
Well, still to come this morning, as more pandemic restrictions come to an end, the nation prepares for a massive influx of migrants at our southern border. A look at what the president plans to do is next. The Capitol Rundown will be right back. Title 42 is set to expire on Monday, setting up the potential of an influx of migrants at our country's southern border. The Biden administration has spent the past month preparing for the moment the pandemic-era public health policy would lift. But as our Washington correspondent Anna Wernicke explains, Republicans fear the president's plan won't be enough.
We have an absolute crisis at the border, and tragically it gets worse and worse and worse every day.
Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz says Border Patrol isn't ready for the surge of migrants expected to arrive at the southern border on Monday.
By rescinding Title 42, they're going to make the problem worse.
For the past 2 years, Title 42 has allowed Border Patrol agents to turn away people seeking asylum at the border in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. CBP says they anticipate an increase in encounters once that policy is lifted.
They're allowing 250,000 people to cross the border, turning half of them away, but their plan is next week they're going to stop turning anyone away. Everyone's going to cross in.
Republicans say Border Patrol is already overwhelmed. In April, CBP reported more than 234,000 encounters with migrants at the southern border.
We recognize that with the end of Title 42, there very well may be an increased surge in migration.
But Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says the department is prepared for illegal crossings to triple in the coming weeks to 18,000 migrants a day.
We are surging resources to the southwest border. We are improving the efficiency of our processing.
Mayorkas says the administration's 6-point plan is in play. Still, Cruz says he's not convinced.
It is an open borders plan. It is not a plan to secure the border. It's the opposite.
In Washington, I'm Anna Wernicke.
Well, that's our show for this week. Thanks for watching the Capitol Rundown. We hope to see you here again next weekend.